So I've been using the new Apple Watch Series 10 for a few days now, and it may not seem like it, but there are actually 15 new features compared to the Series 9. And I'm going to talk about the good and the not so good. So let's get straight into it. Now, there hasn't been any change in the form of the Apple Watch for the past 3 generations. So my Series 8 looks and feels the same as the Series 7 and 9. But this new Series 10 has been re-engineered to be 10% thinner compared to the previous gen Apple Watch. And part of the reason that's been possible is due to the new metal back that fully integrates the antenna into the housing itself. Pair that with the fact that the Series 10 now comes in 2 new sizes, 42mm and 46mm options replace the existing 41 and 45mm options. And it seems like Apple's just used that controversial hydraulic press from the iPad event back in May to slightly squash the existing Apple Watch to be a little thinner and a little bigger. So the larger face and thinner size are immediately noticeable when you put the watch on. And here's a comparison to my Series 8. You can see the Series 10 does look a little more sleek and makes the old gen watch look slightly bulkier. So I am a fan of this minor upgrade. Apple did mention that the new watch is also 10% lighter than the previous gen, but having looked into the numbers, this actually ranges across which watch you buy. So for the GPS version, it's about 6% or 2 to 3 grams weight saving, and it's the GPS and cellular version that is closer to a 9 to 10% or 3 to 4 gram weight saving. So even though 10% sounds like a lot, when we're talking about a couple of grams here and there, you're not really going to feel a difference on your wrist. Although it is worth remembering that you're also getting a bigger watch with a lower weight, which ultimately is a nice upgrade. The new metal back integrates a larger and more efficient charging coil, which means Series 10 is the fastest charging Apple Watch ever. 15 minutes of charging provides up to 8 hours of normal daily use, or 8 minutes of charging powers up to 8 hours of sleep tracking. And faster charging also means you can charge to 80% battery in about 30 minutes. And this is great because if you wear your Apple Watch all day and use it to track your sleep at night, you can just drop it on your charger while you're getting ready in the morning or going for a shower, and that fast charging is going to power up your watch really quickly. The more premium watch this year is actually around 20% lighter than Series 9. And the reason for that is Apple has opted to change materials from stainless steel to the same aerospace grade polished titanium they use in the Pro level iPhones. And that is going to feel noticeably different on your wrist. I know a lot of people like the slightly heavier stainless steel watch as it feels a bit more premium, but I think titanium is a better long-term option as it's stronger and more environmentally friendly. Also, just like the stainless steel option, the titanium watch will come with GPS and cellular as standard. So I mentioned that the Series 10 comes in 2 new larger sizes, and that means that the 46mm display is the largest that's ever been on an Apple Watch. In fact, it's even slightly larger than the Apple Watch Ultra 2, which is actually quite surprising because the Ultra 2 was meant to be the big, rugged watch for adventurers, explorers, divers, and that larger screen was there to make the watch easier to use in those situations. So bringing it to the standard everyday Apple Watch is quite an interesting decision. And I wonder how much it's going to affect the Ultra sales, because I know a lot of people were just buying the Ultra not because of its rugged features, but just for its larger screen. The Series 10 has thinner bezels than last year, which gives it up to 9% more screen area, and that broadly translates to 1 additional line of text in apps like Messages, Mail, or News. This watch is also the first to have Apple's new wide-angle OLED display. And this basically optimizes each pixel to emit more light at wider angles. And the thinking behind this is that when we're wearing a watch, we usually just want to be able to glance at the watch to get some information straight away, whether it be checking the time or looking at notifications. And with previous generation Apple Watches, there's always been a bit of difficulty reading the watch without tilting it slightly towards you. So the wide-angle OLED display makes the display up to 40% brighter than Series 9 when viewed from an angle, making it a lot easier to read what's on your screen at a quick glance. The display can now go down to just 1 nit brightness, and the wide-angle OLED display is also more power efficient, which means this display has a much faster refresh rate in always-on mode than Series 9. Previously, the watch face would refresh once a minute to show the change in time, but now it can refresh once a second, so you can now see a ticking seconds hand without raising your wrist on certain watch faces, which I think is a really nice addition to the watch. Apple have also re-engineered the speaker to make it 30% smaller and fit in the thinner watch body, and it can now play audio other than just phone calls. So you can now listen to music and podcasts without having to wear earphones. Now, I tested this and I have to say I was quite impressed with how loud and clear the speaker actually is, given how small it is. Due to the size, I was expecting the sound quality to be quite tinny and struggle with the highs, but actually it's a pretty decent listening experience and loud enough for you to hear the audio while you're walking around. It's obviously not going to be as loud as an iPhone speaker, but if you're looking for some ambient or background music, it's perfect for that. And talking about phone calls, if you do use your Apple Watch to speak to someone, they'll now be able to hear you a lot more clearly because the Series 10 uses a new voice isolation neural network running on the 4-core neural engine to suppress background noise during phone calls. So your voice sounds crisp and clear on the other end of the line, even in noisy environments like a crowded restaurant, a busy street, or if it's windy outside. The Watch 10 has a new S10 chip and comes in a few new colors. If you opt for aluminium, then you can go for rose gold, silver, or this really nice jet black color, which is probably my favorite. But we have also had a jet black iPhone before, which attracted a huge amount of scratches, so it will be interesting to see how well this watch holds up over time. If you go for the more expensive polished titanium option, then you get to choose from slate, which is like this understated dark gray, natural, which is a slightly lighter gray, and gold. Now let's quickly talk about some software updates. Series 10 has a new depth gauge and water temperature sensor, which you can check out in the new Depth app. And the new Tides app can help you plan your water activities and stay aware of changing conditions 7 days in advance. Now, I'm not that big on water sports, so these aren't exactly useful features for someone like me, but along with a larger screen, these are actually features they brought over from the Apple Watch Ultra. And lastly, Series 10 now tracks your breathing disturbances while you sleep and can tell you if you might have sleep apnea. So, sleep apnea is a sleeping disorder in which breathing stops and starts overnight and is estimated to affect nearly 1 billion adults worldwide. And most of the time, it goes undiagnosed. Of the roughly 30 million people in the US with sleep apnea, which is linked to an increased risk of type 2 diabetes and other health complications if left untreated, only 6 million have been diagnosed, which is where Apple's new sleep apnea notification could potentially help. Series 10 is able to detect signs of moderate to severe sleep apnea by using the accelerometer in the watch to measure movements in the wrist associated with breathing interruptions. Now, Apple did mention during their event that this was still pending FDA approval, but this has now been cleared by the FDA as of Monday, so it is shipping on the Series 10 at launch. I think this could be beneficial to a lot of Apple Watch wearers, and it adds to the list of health tracking features the Apple Watch already has. So the Series 10 feels like the Apple Watch you already know and love, but that's just it. There still doesn't seem to be the huge upgrade that people were hoping to see. You see, this was the 10th generation of the Apple Watch, and people were expecting to see something really special. When the iPhone X came out, it set the standard and design language for the iPhone going forward due to its full screen and notch design. And Apple users loved it because it was true innovation compared to the iPhones that preceded it. And it's not like there weren't a lot of rumors about the Series 10. It was apparently going to have a flat screen just like the Ultra, and a new magnetic mechanism for attaching watch bands. And the SE was rumored to be made out of plastic to reduce costs and price and appeal to a younger audience. But none of these actually happened. So once again, this feels like another incremental upgrade. So that's my review. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about the new Apple Watch and whether you'll be upgrading to the Series 10. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.